Welcome to the GameChangers podcast. We sit down with powerful industry leaders and uncover the secrets to success in solving real-world problems. I'm your host, Kenny Au. I'm Kenny Au, together with
Felix Mago.
We are the co-host of GameChangers
podcast.
Good to have you here today, Jeff. Jeff is the co-founder of the NEM Foundation and the global ambassador of the NEM Group. Good to have you here today, Jeff.
Thanks, man. It's good to be here.
Yeah, so, obviously we've known each other for a long time. Let's share with the audience some of your background. How did you get into the blockchain industry and when?
Yeah, I started in 2013 on Bitcoin Talk, as a lot of people did, super fascinated with the idea of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. I was using Bitcoin as sending money from South Korea to the United States to pay off my student loans. So I didn't have to pay bank fees, and my mind was kind of blown. I was like, if I can save $50 or $100 every month using Bitcoin for international remittance, what else could blockchain be used for? And then that's kind of when I discovered NEM in January of 2014 and was pretty excited, joined the team, started off with Facebook and Twitter, eventually became a core team member, and then NEM launched in 2015. And I've been there ever since, loving the ride, loving the job, loving everything about NEM.
Wow. Well, that's actually 6 years in the game. Is actually quite a long time, for the blockchain industry. Can you help us visualize what it's been like working in this industry?
It's been fascinating. So, in the early days for me, now there's a lot of people that came earlier than me, but, the 2014, 15, 16 days, there was a lot of radical ideology, and there was a lot of Bitcoin maximalism. There was a lot of people that were very concerned about like rebelling against the government and making a new currency to take over the world. And then kind of like with Ethereum and other blockchains, the whole idea of making dApps or investments came about. And then Bitcoin really as a narrative, as BitGold instead of like BitCash, became the dominant narrative, which it is now. I always hear people say Bitcoin is digital gold, but that wasn't the main line years ago, right? And I do believe Bitcoin is digital gold, and I do think a lot of these other great blockchains do other things too. And so I'm still on that same journey, fascinated by what Bitcoin did, still experimenting and understanding what can 2.0 blockchains do that can do more than just sending a coin from one person to another around the world. Yeah.
Let's take the audience back. So where were you when you first heard about Bitcoin? Do you remember where you were?
Well, the very first time was probably in the United States. Probably like maybe 2010 or something. And that was basically just the news saying how Bitcoin is a joke and how Bitcoin had everybody lost money. And I kind of remember laughing at it too. And I probably heard about it on the news a couple more times. Never thought about buying any Bitcoin at that time, never thought anything seriously about it. It wasn't until, like I said, 2013, basically what had happened is I was working as an assistant professor in South Korea, had, like a lot of people who had education, a lot of student loans, had to pay those student loans off every month. And then what had happened was I was supposed to send $1,000 worth of Korean won from South Korea to the United States. And by the time my Korean won turned into USD and arrived in America, I was down $50. I started off with $1,000 in the United States,
right?
Ended up with, or $1,000 in South Korea, ended up with 950. And that was every month. I was being surcharged $50 on bank fees and exchange rates just to move money from my one account that was mine to my other account. These gatekeepers were taking funds, right? And it was amazing because I was able to get that $50 down to $1.50 to move from money from South Korea to America by becoming my own bank, becoming my own banker with Bitcoin. And not only was I able to get it down to $1.50, I was able to get tighter exchange rates. And in fact, via a little bit of arbitrage, I would make money every time. Instead of starting off with $1,000 and ending up with 998 in America, I would end up with over $1,000 every time. And so I was literally making money instead of spending money by using blockchain technology.
So were you in Oklahoma at that time?
I had a house, yes, in Oklahoma and South Korea. Yes, I was born and raised in Oklahoma. I was a permanent resident of South Korea, but my loans were in United States.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think most of us who didn't come into the blockchain space just by trading really have a different experience and a different relationship to it, right? The moment you earn money and you're like, yeah, that's, they got you emotionally forever. I think that's a very important point, no?
Yeah, and I've always been a techie, but the fact that I was able to take control of my own money and make money by taking control of my own money, my mind was just blown, right? And so that idea comes to me, what happens if I can take control of my identity and make money from my identity? Right now, other people control my identity. The US government controls my identity. Google controls my digital identity. They have a whole profile. Facebook controls my digital identity. They have a whole profile of my identity. And so just like I took control with Bitcoin and saved money, now I'm wondering, what can I do with NEM or Symbol and have an identity system and taking control of my own identity? Right. And now can I make money off of that? I think the answer is clearly yes. I think I can be just like I became my own banker, I can become my own identity manager and actually profit from it. And not only profit from it, but get better security, get better services, get better privacy and protection. Because just like before, the banks would record all my transactions and report them. And now, since I became my own banker, I had more privacy. I still have to pay taxes. I still have to report that directly to the government. But now there's not a third party of a bank that's also reporting that information. And so this is what I'm looking at for identity. But not just identity. There's other ways that we could start to think about how can blockchain change the world. There's voting, there's property titles. Ethereum has done a wonderful case right now with DeFi, right? There's non-fungible tokens, there's supply chain. And as I see in the coming years, like the blockchain is just going to revolutionize one of these verticals after another. And it only makes sense because if you think about the world that we live in is a digital world now. It was always pure and analog physical world, but more and more we spend time online. This interview is online, right? This is a digital interview and we become more and more digital each year. It only makes sense that money would have eventually become digital. It only makes sense that identity will someday become digital.
Absolutely.
Right? And it only makes sense that these other things that were once a long time ago recorded in books and then put in databases will become fully decentralized, fully digitized, and not just a database replicating the old system of a book, but born completely of the digital world and existing in only the digital world. And so I'm just fascinated watching this revolution. Yeah.
How does identity relate to what the NEM ecosystem is doing?
Oh, well, I mean, there's a lot of great technology fundamentally built into the Symbol blockchain that allows a new level of identity services on the blockchain. So when we think about blockchain, it starts off with just being able to send a coin from one person to another. And that's essentially one plugin in the Symbol ecosystem, but that's not the only plugin. That's not the only utility that's offered at the protocol level, right? So sending a coin, that's a protocol level benefit. Another one is making a name domain name registry. So you can buy a name in the Symbol blockchain, and you can use this for labeling your account. So Kenny, if you want to buy the name Kenny, I no longer have to send money, my coin, to a random address of characters and numbers. I can now send to Kenny, right? And how much easier is it to have a human readable address instead of a non-human readable address? Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. You're mentioning Symbol now a couple of times. Maybe we're a little bit too fast for our audience. Maybe we can go a little bit, take a step back and look at the history of NEM and how you come to Symbol, what Symbol is. Let us move that ahead a little bit. And can you tell us what are actually the different parts in the NEM ecosystem? When I remember when I met, or when I learned about NEM for the first time, it was like this kind of corporate blockchain is kind of an Ethereum competitor. You can easy plug and play everything you need as a corporation. So that was, I don't know, back in 2015, 16 maybe. Can you maybe give us a little bit of a history lesson and where NEM has gotten from that point, and mentioning the different parts of the NEM ecosystem?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So basically, we started off in 2015 at NEM, and the goal was to kind of become an enterprise blockchain. And the idea with NEM was to build a very secure blockchain that would never break, that was, like you said, plug and play. We had great APIs, still have great APIs, that allows someone to, let's say, for instance, the most common case of build a coin, right? And if you want to build a coin on some other contract or other blockchains, you might have to learn another computer language like Solidity, right? And you might have to have a powerful developer. Like, it literally just takes under a minute on NEM and just a few clicks to create your own coin. And I'm super happy that the NEM blockchain, running since 2015, 6 years, has never had a problem with a single coin being lost, ever. Not one penny has ever been lost because of our plugin system on NEM. And that's fantastic, because we've secured literally billions of dollars of transactions, billions of dollars of funds. And the blockchain world is like plagued with a problem of people losing money because something went wrong with a contract or a coin. And that's not ever happened in NEM because of our secure architecture. And so that was kind of the idea with NEM, was to build this very secure, very stable blockchain that had a lot of utility. And that's been expanded upon Symbol. And not only that, but Symbol has added a lot of great extra security features where problems are being solved that have not been adequately addressed, in my opinion. So we'll take like one case of in NEM, we have something called supernodes. And that's pretty cool. It's basically like this second layer system where you're, well, let me back up for a second. There's a problem in most blockchains where people don't run nodes. And you have to be running a full node to protect the blockchain and the network. And then what happens is that some blockchains like NEM, we come up with a system called supernodes, which is like, here's an extra reward for running a node, because the base layer protocol doesn't really handle that. So like, if I go back again to Bitcoin, I'm not picking on Bitcoin. It's a great design, right? But in Bitcoin, you get rewarded for making hash. You get rewarded for solving puzzles. You do not get a reward for running a full node. And this is something that we've addressed at the consensus layer, at the base protocol layer in Symbol, where now people that run a node do get a reward. So basically, if you can think of in proof of stake, the more stake you have, the higher the likelihood you are to get a block. and we still have that system, but it only accounts for, say, 70% of the algorithm that's part of consensus. Another 25% comes from, are you running a node? So let's say I download a mobile app and I have coins on it, and I want to just ask somebody else to make blocks for me, to be a block producer. I can do that, but now they're going to collect 25% of that reward, right? And I'm going to get 70%. There's another 5% that comes from nodes that are voting, which is a lot harder to explain. But yeah, I split it between the node that's harvesting for me, that's making blocks for me. We call it harvesting.
But
so
in other words, you basically have a paid infrastructure on top of the mining network. You could say like that.
Yes.
So you incentivize a different group of stakeholders to do additional tasks miners wouldn't do, right? And this is actually the improvement from, as my understanding, NEM and other blockchains, right? The Dash masternode system has a quite similar approach, actually.
Yeah, the masternode system in Dash is a fantastic system. As far as I know, the masternode system too is really neat because it also helps fund governance in the ecosystem, which is really wonderful. So what we're doing is a little bit similar to that, like I said, but it's a consensus algorithm where, and I'm not completely familiar with exactly how Dash does masternodes today. I was familiar with it years ago, but it's a really fascinating system, again, because there's two ways to incentivize people to earn money by participating in the network. One way is by running a node, other is by staking coins. And that's just really fascinating to me. I heard a founder of a very famous top 10 blockchain not so long ago say, hey, this problem of how to reward running nodes can never be addressed, can never be solved. So we're not even going to look at it. And so, that blockchain is going to run into problems with centralization. But because of Symbol's reward system for running a node, I, as a staker, have this kind of economic question. It's built into the tokenomics. I can say, well, I can stake my coins and get X amount every month, or I can stake my coins and run a node and get 100% or 95% of my rewards every month. And so when it becomes profitable for people to run a node, the rational actor, and it's not very expensive to run a node on Symbol, right? You can do a regular cloud setup or have an old computer running at home, running a full node. And so, in the case, let's say it's an old computer that you're using to run a node at home, your setup costs are essentially zero, right? And so rational actors will say, hey, I want that extra money. I'll run my own node. And so we end up with this wonderful decentralized system of nodes all around the world, and it's incentivized, right? And that's just one of many, many things that we've done in Symbol along the way to kind of improve it from our original version of NEM into this new version of Symbol. And like I said, Symbol has a lot of plugins. It has a lot of beautiful features. I don't even know what to talk about because there's too much to talk about.
Okay, but when did the shift happen from being NEM to becoming Symbol? Or where's kind of that story? To explain a little bit for the users, please.
Right. So that's a great question. And I wouldn't say it's as much as a shift as it is the birth of a second blockchain. So the NEM network still exists, will always exist. Like I said, NEM has this perfect 6-year history of running and never having any problems. And I don't see it. In fact, the NEM network being 6 years old is better than a lot of new networks that are born today. I mean, it was just that far advanced, right? And Symbol is more advanced than a lot of new code blockchains that'll be born in 3 or 4 years from now. It really is just that far advanced. We're solving all kinds of problems with it. And so Symbol was essentially the birth of a second blockchain. There were some hard decisions made where you could maybe try to hard fork some of this in, but at some point you can't, right? Because fundamentally, the way that like Symbol has been designed in its architecture is it's some things you just can never hard fork in. Like there's a new type of cryptography that is added into the Symbol blockchain called Patricia trees, which is super fascinating. It basically allows somebody to have what would be the equivalent of a full node, but on their mobile phone. And they're not having to verify every transaction and every block to figure out the current state of their account. But they can get almost basically the same level of security by quickly verifying all the block headers and just all the transactions related to their account. And so with older blockchains, you would literally have to go through every single thing that has ever happened on the whole network to figure this out. But with Symbol, you just have to figure out what was related to your account and verify that. And you get that same level of cryptographic security. That's the type of thing that you can't hard fork in after the fact. You can't just go back to block 0 and retroactively add this cryptography because it's fundamentally a part of how blocks are made, right? And so if we wanted to add this technology in, we needed a new chain. There's other things with about how custom assets, how domain names are made, how on-chain multi-sig contracts are made, that fundamentally the new designs, which are a big improvement, could not be backwards compatible with the old technology. And so Symbol started off as kind of was going to be just an upgrade to the NEM network. But then this kind of hard development choice was, well, we can upgrade and make a good or a better version of NEM, or we can make a new network and make the best version of NEM. And so what's happening too now is we're also starting to see some diversification of how things are done. Some things are mutually exclusive, right? Like you either make an asset this way or you make an asset this way. You don't want to try to make assets both ways, right? And so we are seeing some things like the old NEM network has a feature called levies, where you can basically put a pre-built, pre-programmed tax on any asset that you've created, where a small reward comes back to the asset creator. Symbol doesn't currently have that feature, but Symbol has a lot of other features that NEM doesn't. And so I think as time goes by and as companies request or the community requests different features, the kind of decision will be made, does this better fit in NEM version 1 or Symbol, the latest version, right? And so I see a place for both blockchains in the ecosystem.
Okay, so just to summarize the few key problems, what are the top 3 problems that Symbol is solving for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes back to the top 3 problems for all blockchains: security, scalability, usability. And we're getting a huge increase in scalability. We're getting another huge increase in security and utility. So, I mean, I can go into those all in detail, but I would say that, the 4th big problem in crypto is private key management and usability for the common user. And we do have a very interesting contract, which is multi-level, multi-sig, which is essentially where you can create one set of signers, which uses your account. And it could just be one person. Like I could say, hey, this is me. Whenever I want to access my account, I can just access it anytime. But you can also create a second or even third or fourth, but let's just say for this case, a second group of users that can also access your account. So I could say, my mom and my brother and my uncle, if all 3 of them get together, they can unlock my account, or another branch, I can unlock my account whenever I want to. Yes.
So essentially they can be your co-signers for the account, right?
Even backup co-signers. Yes. Yeah. It can be.
And
yeah.
how do you access that? Are they using a hardware wallet or?
I would suggest people use hardware wallets. We have a mobile phone, which can be secured with a fingerprint or a face, right? We have a desktop wallet, which I'm hoping offline transactions will come to very soon. I think that's in the roadmap. If it doesn't happen by launch, it'll probably happen, later on this quarter or next quarter. And so these are kind of the basic ways that you could think of are the best way of securing, offline hardware wallet, right? These are great ways. You could just use the normal, regular old mobile app that has the fingerprint or Face ID scanner on it too, to protect your funds. I'm super happy to say that Symbol, even before it launches, is already supported by the Ledger hardware wallet. I mean, this is just fascinating for me. What blockchain, before it even launches, has ever had hardware wallet support? I mean, usually hardware wallet support is an afterthought, where somebody launches a blockchain and then 6 months or a year or 3 years later finally gets hardware wallet support. But again, at Symbol, we are taking security at the highest level. And this was a big priority for us to have a hardware wallet, not just on day one, but day zero. When people are opting in and there's a process where on the NEM blockchain, you can say, hey, I have 10 XYM coins or XEM coins. I have 10 XEM coins and I want to get 10 XYM coins. Where do I want them to go? I want them to arrive on block 1 on the launch day in my ledger. And so it's already there. You just plug and play your ledger when you do the opt-in transaction. And then on day 1, you plug in your ledger into the Symbol wallet and your coins are there, right? And this is the level of security that we go after.
So are you saying that the multi-sig feature where you could give, make your mom, your brother, let's say a few people that you're close to, you can give them access, to the account. Is that feature already available?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So you can set it up where I have a hardware wallet, a ledger, and then I initiate a transaction on that. And then I can set up 2-factor on that, where then I have to co-sign. So I use my desktop wallet and a hardware wallet, and then I have to use my mobile phone as a 2-factor to approve it. So that could be one branch, right? And then another branch is if I lose my phone and I don't have my 2-factor, or if I lose my ledger, right, and I can't initiate a transaction, then I can call my mom, my brother, and my uncle and say, hey guys, can you log into your ledgers or your mobile phones and please unlock my funds for me? So it's an either or type of scenario. And this,
so it's kind of like the decentralized custody component.
It is man, you just nailed it. I've never heard anybody say that before, but it is a decentralized custody component application. Exactly. Yeah.
That's very powerful. That's very powerful. So instead of giving them a seed, you're like, hey, here's the device, and here's the application, and this is how you do it. And so you can recover your funds much faster.
Yes. And, and I would suggest that everybody, tries to, and look, I don't know how hard it is to do multi-sig on a different blockchain that's truly decentralized, where you're not using a third party. Yes, I've used Coinbase's multi-sig, or yes, I've used Green Wallet's multi-sig, but how often has somebody actually set up a multi-sig account where they themselves are the owner? Remember what I'm talking about before about the government being the owner or somebody else being the owner. This, you don't have to rely on a third party. This is built in at the protocol level in the wallet that you can download off of GitHub. And it's just click, click, click.
Yeah, sounds
no
good.
Coding, no having to learn a different language. This is something that somebody who's only been into blockchain for a couple weeks can do and set up with just a little bit of guidance and a tutorial. Like literally, it is beginner level of blockchain usability to be able to do a super complex.
Just make sure your mom and uncle doesn't, hey, throw it away. What is this USB for? You're like, hey.
Right? There's a lot of sad stories like that. A lot of sad stories.
Since I'm in blockchain, my mom's the best reference for anything. If she understands it, we're on the right way. And so I strongly believe we were always way too much in our own head than in our own bubble. It's like the things you're talking about make total sense. But it is about communicating it to the people, showing them that this is a solution, and showing them, hey, like, you download this, you click here, bam, you have it. Even if something happens to you, die or whatever, there is a process. You click that button,
sure,
then
man.
there is so many applications. I'm totally with you. But a part of that, that's an amazing use case. But my understanding is Symbol is mainly focused on securities, right, and on securitization. So what is kind of what is the killer use case?
I would love to see Symbol someday be used to have a stock market run off, a whole stock market run on. In that case, it would be a Symbol private chain and not a public chain. But I think that would be a great use case. Where we've already done a deal with the Central Bank of Lithuania to have them experiment putting a coin on the Symbol blockchain, which I was super fascinated about that, because a lot of people talk about central bank digital currencies, but as far as I know, Lithuania was the first country ever to do a central bank digital currency backed by a precious metal, meaning every digital dollar that they put on the blockchain, on the NEM blockchain, was backed by a silver coin, right? 1 for 1. And so I was super fascinated with that project, and they're going to be doing a lot of great work with Symbol now that it's ready. And so I see that. I look, I'm not exactly a prophet. I don't know what the killer app is going to be and where it's going to rise. I'm super happy with how the infrastructure right now is being set up in the blockchain community to allow Bitcoin to be used as digital gold. I think that we're finally coming to this space. We know Elon Musk just bought $1.5 billion worth of cryptocurrency. That was the big news this week. And so when you see companies like Tesla and Next, Twitter or Apple, or Facebook's already announced their Libra coin, when you see more and more of big tech companies getting involved into blockchain, then we can see, okay, the infrastructure is coming. But that's just for sending coins from one person to another. Those are not very ambitious projects, right? And when I think about something like a digital stock market, that's way more complicated than just sending coins from one person to another, because you need contracts, and you need derivatives, and you need ultra high frequency trading, right? And so how are you going to be able to do that in a way that's more than just one person to another sending coins, right? But I think that in Symbol, we've really built the ability for this to become a realization years down the road. The basic technology that you would want to be able to do all that and do it well. And again, do it securely, because the last thing you want to do is put your stock market on a blockchain and then have your blockchain break or have your contract break, right? There's no room for error. Look, if you're making a smart contract and you do an ICO and you raise $5 million, there's a lot of room for error. If you're doing a startup with 5 of your buddies in your garage and that thing breaks, you can apologize to the community and try to start again if they let you. But if you're a central bank, there's no apologies to your whole country because you wrecked their national currency, because your smart contract wasn't good. You need it to work 100% of the time, not 99.99% of the time. And that's the clients that we're going after with Symbol. We're not going after the people that want to probably make it work. We're going after the people that it definitely has to work all the time. That's our client. Yeah.
That makes total sense. I mean, we now have the security aspect. You elaborated on that, and then your algorithm as well to secure all that. What about the scalability? Something you mentioned before. How scalable?
Yeah. We just did a public stress test. So we invited hundreds of people from around the world. So this is real world scenario. This is some people running computers at home, some people on this cloud provider with a big contract, some people on this one with a very small one, and so on and so on. And so we had a really good, really heavily stress test, and we were going at 400 transactions per second. And that was simulating real world scenarios. I don't think the main net will launch. It'll definitely be over 100, maybe 200, right? Whenever it launches, but I don't think we'll try to go to 400 or 800 transactions per second. And let me just say about like how much of an accomplishment it is to make a truly decentralized and real blockchain that's following the Satoshi Nakamoto model of consensus and blockchain, and do either 200 or 400 transactions per second. Let's just say 200, right? If you think about EOS is a good blockchain, but they collected billions of dollars in funds and spent a long time making their blockchain and have a network with 21 nodes. Now, it turns out that their 21 nodes is what they need, right? And they can do 1,000 transactions per second. So we're offering the same level of security, which is censorship nodes, resistant nodes. If you want to run a node on the Symbol blockchain, your own node, you can do that. You can participate in the network, and nobody can actually stop you from doing that. Right. And so we're offering that level of decentralization and that level of security with hundreds of transactions per second. And so I think that, with scalability, that's a very big improvement. And it's not just, again, the scalability of being able to put information on chain. We've done a lot of improvements with scalability of getting information off of the chain. And this is something a lot of people just overlook. Right? They're all like, I'm going to put 500 transactions per second. I'm going to put, 50 transactions. I'm going to put 1 million transactions per second on chain. Okay, good. You figured out a way to put 100,000 transactions per second on a blockchain. How do you get that information off of that? What's the assumption? You put 100,000 transactions a second on the blockchain. How many real world users is that? It's billions, right? How are you going to get billions of people using their phones and their computers to call upon the blockchain to get all that data off? I'm telling you, it doesn't work, right, for most people. And so like one solution, I know that Dash has a decentralized API. Another solution is Ethereum. And I'm more familiar with Ethereum, so I think Dash's is better, but I'll talk a little bit about Ethereum for a moment, right? And Ethereum solution is basically this company called Consensus made a program called Infura. And basically, I know a lot of ETH devs, and every single ETH dev I know uses this one company, or I think every single dev, maybe there's one that I know that doesn't, right? But it seems like every time I ask, how are you reading data off the blockchain? They say, well, we use Infura. And what Infura basically is a centralized server that somebody uses their smart contract or their phone app or their computer app to ask Infura, hey, what's going on in the blockchain? And then Infura tells them they're not querying the network directly. They're querying this in-between third party. And so that's a problem, because if Infura servers ever get DDoS'd, most of the Ethereum ecosystem is going to go down. They won't be able to serve data to their clients. And this is kind of like a secret thing that people worry about. Like, what happens if Infura goes down? What's the backup plan, right? Because again, there's scalability about putting information on chain, but then there's scalability about delivering that data to all your millions of users. And so NEM's solution, or Symbol's solution, well, NEM started off with a basic API on every node, and then Symbol has improved that by providing a second database. So this is very technical, but the first database is the blockchain database. It's something called RocksDB. It's a very secure database for securing the information. And the second one's called MongoDB. And the MongoDB is a second database, which is specifically for our API server, which is on every node. And the MongoDB is wonderful because you can start to ask it very complicated queries. Most blockchains, the query is basically like, hey, what's this hash? What is my balance? Right? And that's about as far as the API gets. Whereas with the MongoDB, you can start to do very complicated API calls. Whatever you want to imagine, that MongoDB can be adjusted to be able to do that. If you want to say, hey, when did Kenny send money to Jeff? Just show me those transactions between Kenny and Jeff. I don't want to go to a block explorer and click back, and search for Kenny's accounts and Jeff's accounts to find out. I just want to send it to me, right? Or if you want to do, hey, when did Jeff send under $100? Or when did Jeff send only this coin? Or show me the about the accounts with above this balance, or just show me all the accounts with this certain kind of token. We call it a mosaic. Show me only accounts with this mosaic in it, and so on and so on. Basically, any kind of rich call that you want to imagine, this MongoDB will be able to serve. And that's important. And every single full node, and remember, we're incentivizing full nodes. So there's a lot of them out there. Every single full node has this kind of like mini Infura built on top of it. So you can query any node on the network for free. It costs nothing because they're already being incentivized by consensus to run the full node to get all this information. And so, that's another type of scalability that people don't address, right? They're only talking about usually how do we put information on chain. No, few people, not all, some blockchains realize this and they're working at it, right? But you can't have a truly working blockchain that's going to provide services all over the world at scale if you can't read information off of it. Right? You have to be able to write and read. And so, that's one of the things that our developers spent a lot of time on, making sure it was built in from scratch.
Amazing. It's really a lot to unpack here. And I mean, obviously it's a lot of user groups you're basically right now targeting, right? You're talking about devs, you're talking about incentives to users, to people who run nodes, to miners. We have like so many stakeholders are already mentioned. Maybe we have one question I have is definitely how are you seeing right now interacting with all the existing protocols? Like, what is the move participating in DeFi now? I've heard NEM is partnering with Stakehound now, so there is obviously a wrapped asset on Ethereum. Is that the route to take? How you see that approach, and how you see your NEM going inter-blockchain, interoperable between blockchain and between existing projects and existing things?
Yeah. So look, Ethereum has this giant first mover advantage with DeFi, just like Bitcoin did with digital gold, right? And so I'm not going to look in the camera and tell everybody, Symbol is going to be the best DeFi chain in 2021. That's just simply not realistic. Just like if I said, Symbol would become the best form of digital gold or digital platinum, right, in 2021. That's not going to happen. And so we need to kind of ease into it. As you mentioned, Stakehound, a wonderful program. What they're able to do is wrap XEM or wrap XYM so that somebody who wants to participate in the current Ethereum DeFi system while we're building up our own can do that. And it's a kind of a very simple thing. You put your money into the Stakehound, which is when you deposit your XEM or XYM into Stakehound, it goes into a custodial service. Not just someone's private ledger, right? It goes into a custodial service that's insured. So your money's there. Then you're getting a wrapped token on the Ethereum, an ERC20 contract that can be used to participate in stake or go for leverage or whatever you want to do with it. All those great things that Ethereum have done. But one of the kind of benefits of having staked XYM or staked XEM is that, and there's more than just Stakehound. Stakehound's a great example, but there's other companies too. some of them are giving you rewards. So whenever you're putting your XYM or your XEM into Stakehound, they're actually staking it for you. They're running that node. They're not running a 75% or 25. They're running the whole thing. So you don't have to do that. They're running that node. They're collecting daily rewards for you. And then your XYM balance account on Ethereum goes up every so often, right? According to the amount of earnings that they earned for you. So for people that don't really know a lot about Symbol, that don't really, want to download a Symbol wallet or run a full node or be bothered into that, it's super easy on Ethereum just to get staked XYM. And now they're part of the tokenomics. Now they're earning interest in a way that they would have if they were on the Symbol network. Yeah, so that's a good way. And I think that as we see in the future, there's some pretty good tokenomics that were designed into Symbol. And I wouldn't be surprised after Symbol launches that staked XYM becomes a hot token on Ethereum. Everybody's chasing the hottest token, right? That's all they're doing. They don't care. They just see, is it good interest rates? That's what I want. And, Symbol is going to be offering competitive interest rates. I can't. I can't because it depends on how many people participate in the network. So there's block rewards, right? Or there still are some legacy supernode rewards, but the majority of it is a part of consensus, right? Well, depending on how many people try to stake or how many people run nodes, it's essentially a zero-sum game. So less participants, more rewards, more participants, less rewards. I don't want to do any hard predictions, but I'm confident that we can beat the Federal Reserve or we can beat the bank down the street. So, and that's not hard, right? Because it's like, what is it, like 1 or 2% when you try to borrow money from your bank? We'll definitely be above that.
Yeah. So what is your goal for Symbol in 2021? And what do you anticipate the challenges are going to be?
I care about transactions on chain. I got into blockchain because I wanted to see people like myself a long time ago use the blockchain for a real world service, right? I was using it to gain power for myself, right? And I want to see Symbol be able to do that for other people. And yes, it's super nice and exciting to see projects be born that have great ideas and they make big promises, but I want to see them deliver. I want to see these projects, make something so that the average person like myself in 2013 and 14 had their life improved, right? That's our goal. And so, we have definitely NEM Group, which I'm the global ambassador of, has currently three different companies underneath it. One is a software company that's helping to make some of the wallets and other features that you see on Symbol. Another is a trading desk. A third is something called NEM Ventures. And NEM Ventures is particularly interesting because it is searching for these projects that Symbol is a really good fit for. It is looking to say, hey, you were looking at so-and-so blockchain, why don't you look at Symbol, right? And actually we'll invest in you. And so hopefully I'd like to see some NEM Ventures investments come and invest in projects that are making a real world difference, not just a 5x on the coin. Honestly, I don't want to hear about a 5x on coin, right? I want to hear about a 5x of on-chain transactions because real world people are using it, right? That's what I want to see. And so part of the problem we have, I would say, is what NEM is often a top 20 blockchain, sometimes a top 10 blockchain. But we don't get the awareness that a Stellar or a Ripple or an Ethereum gets. We don't have that name recognition. And even though, in some ways, I am like so confident. Do a technology taste test where you put symbol against some of these other blockchains for a certain use case. We will win hands down, right? But we don't have that name and that marketing out there. And so, what we need is we need the community to help us get out the word. We need, people looking at it, exploring, people that are testing blockchains to test us, more reports, more articles. We want to make a difference in the world. We want to make a blockchain that works, and we need help getting that word out. We need people testing it. We need less people being interested in becoming rich and more people being interested in building. And that's why on the back of my car, my license plate says BUIDL, Buildle, not HODL, right? Because I love the build. Yeah.
It's so true. Yeah. We have seen it goes a bit hand in hand, right? I mean, the more people get hyped by getting rich, the more people start building. And when it gets quiet, people still build. That's the good thing about it. That was
you just nailed it. Like, I was completely wrong. I thought you build and then people get rich. That's not what happens in cryptocurrency. People get rich and then they have some leftover money and decide, you know what, maybe I'm going to build something. And so the whole market kind of goes through these pump cycles, which is nice. A lot of people become very rich, but after every pump cycle, a new wave of builders come in. And I think that's why I was saying at the beginning of this talk, the infrastructure worldwide now is there for Bitcoin to become digital gold, right? When you see that, Tesla has bought, that means that there, and the CME has listed, right? And BlackRock, the largest investment fund in the world, $7 trillion of user funds being managed, is now going to invest into the ecosystem. When you start to see major companies and major exchanges and funds going in, now the stage is set for money on blockchain, right? A lot of people wouldn't even mess with blockchain because that infrastructure wasn't there, right? And now they will, right? I recently just applied for a bank account and went into the bank, and then they asked, are you associated with cryptocurrency? And I said, yes. And they refused to give me a bank account. So, I mean, this is the problems that we're still having in 2021. But that's going to be solved. And then, like I said, these other applications that go beyond just digital gold, right? We're going to see them really start to get the infrastructure they need. And it's always easier for the second use case and the third use case. It's really hard building that worldwide use case of digital gold. But then once that's done, doing some of these things like maybe a worldwide, or not worldwide, but countrywide or citywide voting system, that becomes a lot easier, right? I think one of the car companies just announced that they were going to start putting blockchain certificates for each car. So kind of like a Carfax, where you get a report on the car, but from the car company on the blockchain that follows the car, right, throughout its life cycle. And I think that's just a fantastic thing. And it's not just cars. It could be watches. It could be bicycles. I am amazed. I know it's a very small niche kind of product, but just as an example, there's people out there that spend thousands of dollars on bicycles, and they're getting stolen, or parts are getting removed or added, or there's wear and tear and things that get fixed and replaced. And there's no Carfax for bicycles, right? The market is now primed for one of these premium or elite bicycle companies to say, hey, I'm doing exactly what this car company did with blockchain certificates, but I'm going to do it with the bicycle. Everybody knows that if you buy my brand of elite bicycle, that it should come with a blockchain certificate. And this certificate follows the history of the bicycle, saying what it was used, where it was done, everything like that. And then you can even start to get collectible bicycles, because if some bicycle was registered in a famous race and it won that race, right? Then all of a sudden that bicycle, the price of that bicycle goes up a lot. It's no longer a generic bicycle. It's basically a non-fungible bicycle. It's an NFB, right? and so because it's a one of a kind, because it won a race, right? And so I'm looking in the future, like I hardly can't imagine a world where, I mean, I just kind of thought this thing about the bicycle off the top of my head, but I can't hardly imagine a world in the future where things like this don't take place on the blockchain.
Yeah, I gotta agree here. Still, we have a long way to go, right? I come back to my reference. My mom still don't get it, so we have to work on that. And I think building narratives bit by bit and building real things they can relate to, people can relate to it. That's definitely the right way to go, right?
Exactly. And to the mom scenario, you know, I have a mom story too. You know, I was really talking, and she tried to go onto Coinbase and buy some coins, and they rejected her. Poor lady. Like the bank wouldn't work or something. And so we're not there yet. But what I think, and again, I think the biggest problem is private key management. And I think the solution, actually, as proud as I am of having a Treasure hardware wallet on NEM and a Ledger hardware wallet on NEM, two great companies, I think the future is when Apple and Samsung decide that every phone is going to have a crypto chip, specific a chip built into that phone. And it might have something like a multi-level, multi-sig contract, like what I just mentioned, where whenever you set up your Samsung phone, it says, hey, you know, would you like to make any of these other people backup custodians? You know, if so, what are their Apple iMessage accounts, right? And do you want it to be a 2 of 3 or a 5 of 5? You know, does it take 5 out of 5 family members to unlock your phones, or maybe just 1 out of 1, or maybe 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, right? And I think when Apple is able to put a crypto chip in their phone that then integrates with the major exchanges and the wallets, and then you just have this one-click kind of sign up and join an exchange, or one-click download the wallet, that's when I think crypto really becomes worldwide. And I do think it will be, you know, Samsung's going to make their own crypto chip system, Apple's going to make their own, and you kind of get locked into the one or the other ecosystems, just like right now you do with computers or phones. And I think that that's just something we're going to have to live with. But when Samsung and Apple do address that issue, and undoubtedly there's whole teams of engineers right now at Apple and Samsung that are looking into this exact the same thing, that's when we make crypto so easy that even a kid can use it. The example I always like to give is, pretend that there's a 13-year-old boy who's trying to sign up with an exchange while playing video games. You know, he's on his phone and playing video games at the same time. What are the chances that he messes up, right? Or doesn't know, because he's a teenager and he's a boy, right? And you have to make it basically foolproof for him whenever you get the sign up process, so that a teenager can be doing something else while signing up for an exchange and not lose their funds. Then we've made it. Then it's there. That's kind of my level, my bar. The best way to, you know, look, it's not about me, it's about the technology, right? So go to the website nem.io, and then from that website you can either read more about NEM or Symbol. We have our Twitter account, which is at NEM official on Twitter. That basically covers both blockchains in that one Twitter feed. We do have a very active community on Telegram, NEM Red. We have a big community in China on WeChat. All of these social media links can be found on the website nem.io.
Yeah. All right, man.
Amazing. Cool. We are very much looking forward to hear more all about it. What's the timeline? Maybe last question. What's the timeline right now for you?
what's coming next?
NEM Group has said that Symbol will launch in February, probably. So everybody in the community is anxiously awaiting that launch. And that's going to be a really big day. It's going to be big news. And we should come back and do a post-launch talk too, so I can give updates, because there might be some things that I'm not allowed to talk about right now, right? And maybe I will be able to talk about those later on. So hopefully, let's have another show. I'm really happy that you guys invited me on. Enjoyed talking as always, and I think we should do it again.
Let's do it.
All right.
Fantastic. Very good talking to you.
Yep, good talking to you too. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for listening to the Game Changers podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're keen to learn more, check out our other episodes. That's all for this episode. See you next time.